real Lotus 49 competed in the tight confines of Monaco, though the notorious fragility of the car left it with a DNF in 1967. And while the forums of iRacing still call fervently for that classic circuit, the good news is that an equally difficult and punishing street course has arrived on the scene to satiate those with a hunger for carnage. Detroit's Belle circuit plays host to today's race, and our drivers are currently steeling themselves in preparation for what is anticipated to be one of the toughest combos of the season. We'll see who survives as we get ready to watch round 4 of the Lotus 49 World Cup, and you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Sean Ambrose. Behind the scenes is our director, the Dr. Amjad Yaman, and he's using cameras provided by Ducky Beard. Sean, this has been a popular track among many series we've covered this season, but in case anyone hasn't tuned in, why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
Boy, and is it real popular on iRacing right now, Joe. It's, of course, the new darling of the field, if you will. So, great circuit here right on the Detroit River, which, of course, is the border between Michigan and Ontario. Now, on the U.S. side floats this 982 acres of park now known as Belle. There's a lot of things here: the Belle Aquarium, the Conservatory, the Nature Center, the Detroit Boat Club, and even a golf course. And of course, the beautiful James Scott Memorial Fountain. This is a 14-turn, 2.35-mile temporary street circuit that has taken over this island on race days. Now, like many temporary street courses, it's tight and passing is at a premium. One of the main characteristics of this place is the very bumpy racing surface. So what do we look for when we have that? Well, look forward to wreak havoc with these drivers and their machines today, especially in this Lotus 49 with the lack of grip. Now, since its first opening in '92, the track has seen a multitude of series compete here, including IndyCar, IMSA, WeatherTech Sports Car Championship, which is competing there now. And you know what? This track has a lot of history to come in the years to follow here. So let's take this opportunity to let you, the viewer, enjoy the beautiful landscape as we ride around, jump on board for another GSRC lap guide.
All right, we've got Ben Zocco and the GSRC Lotus 49, so let's do a lap around Detroit. Turn 1 is going to be very tricky for the drivers, with the car coming in somewhat unsettled by the final kink. It's also not much of a passing zone unless you really surprise your opponent, and that's risky. Finding the power off of the crest of 2 is going to be extra difficult, so be careful. As we fly down towards turn 3, this is where you'll see the majority of overtakes attempted, but it'll be incredibly easy to outbrake yourself, and smart drivers will take the escape road. There's just so little room to try and run wide at the exit. Then you're chucked right into 4, which is wider than you'd expect, but still not ideal for side-by-side racing. 5 is a little off camber and tightens on the exit, making it a trouble zone for getting into the wall, especially if a car gets to the inside of you. 6 is one of the most critical corners on the circuit, and it throws you a curveball with a crest on the entry. Hesitating on the power out of here will put you at a disadvantage down the backstretch. But anyone who gets into a battle at this part of the track is rolling the dice. The gentle curves, the bumps, and the tricky braking for 7 make it very easy to get tangled up with someone. Now we head into the fountain section, and you'll find very little opportunity to fully get on the power through here. In fact, I'd advise against trying to go too wide at any point through this sequence. It eventually culminates in one of the slowest turns on the track, 11. It also has some of the nastiest bumps right where you're trying to get to the power. The final few turns will test your guts because 12, 13, and 14 are all medium or high-speed corners with no runoff and no tires. It's just bare concrete wall ready to gobble up your suspension. The final kink in particular still needs a bit of a lift to get through, but hopefully you've kept it together and have now finished a lap around Detroit. And that is a lap around the narrow confines of Detroit's Belle Isle circuit. Qualifying has just started. We're waiting for some laps to come in, but why don't we take a glance at what's going on in the Points Championship, starting out with the Drivers' Championship. Dimitri Houdelouise took over the lead after a win last week, and David Gasper slots down to second. We'll see if that switches back around. Narrow margin up there of only 4 points. Marco Kika, with a great run that he had onto the podium, bumps him up to third. Ove Trangrade with his tangle with Gaspers means he gets slotted down to fourth. Dave Price moves down the order into fifth after, I believe, he missed last week. Now, Sean, they also have a amateur championship. They call it the F2 championship in this series. What's that look like?
The F2 shows Hideki Koivitso at the top right now. I wouldn't say he's running away, but he has put 7 points between him and Matt Wright, who is up the board one now into second place. The Australian having a good start to the season. Simon Shaw with a big effort last week finds himself now in third. They're only 10 points behind Hideki. And Don, tell me something good in the top 5, actually fourth now, with just 21 points behind our leader Hideki Koivitso. Now we got a couple drivers tied in fifth, Joe.
And they keep track of the Constructors' Championship. Essentially, it's a Nations Championship in this series. So up at the top of that, the UK has moved back to the front as Germany had a bad race last week with Gaspers. Claridge, Price, Perry contributed to the points there this time to get them up into first. Greece now bumps up to second. Germany, as we mentioned, slots down a couple positions. Finland gains a few spots to get to the top 5, and Trangrade being the only Norwegian out there, he slots down. He slots his country down into fifth. Sean, in case we have people tuning in just to catch what's going to happen between this car and Belle Isle, what's the race details?
I'm going to be honest with you. I think there's probably a bit of a train wreck factor audience today. We've probably got some additional viewers who just come to see what it's like to get around Detroit. But this is round 4 of 12. Now, there are 2 drop weeks during the season, and they will the drivers will be allowed to drop their 2 lowest totals from races within this 12-round schedule. But the race distance today, only 20 laps. The setups on the car, as always, are open. What does open mean? Well, it means drivers, engineers, their crew chiefs, if they have them, have been able to adjust the car, make adjustments that either provide more grip or less grip, better handling. Always looking for traction and grip at Belle Isle. It's going to be very challenging in this car, Joe, as I spent quite a bit of time in it last night here, and there is none. We'll just leave it at that. And it's a hot track today, so you see the scoring. We had the scoring there up on the screen during the race details. First place will pay 40 points all the way back to 20th spot, where you only get 1 for finishing 20th. We've got 16 cars in the field today, Joe.
So everybody should be able to score points. Even still, there's incentive to do well today. Got a few times up on the screen for qualifying. David Gasper is currently sitting on the pole. Huda Luis, who seems to be the main driver who could challenge him lately, is in second. Mick Claridge also is usually fast, but he is not here today, once again, for the second week in a row. Now, interestingly, I see that Ben Zocco has put a pretty good lap in, got him on second row. Gary Keel as well, joining him there in third. Let's see who else has yet to put their second lap in. Just glancing through the field. Ove, one of those, I believe.
Yeah, Ove right now just trying to get a lap in. He hasn't qualified one yet here. Only a couple minutes left in queue. He needs to get going. Let's see. This should give him one.
First time lap is good enough for pole. All right. Gee. And by about a 10th.
I was worried there. I'm thinking, man, Ove needs to get a lap in.
I think he's got enough time for a second one here, as they are running just about 1:30 laps, and he crossed with about 2 minutes left on the clock, so he should sneak the second one in unless he bumps the wall and nullifies that lap. Here we're watching Tell Me Something Good out there. Currently doesn't have time in, and that is actually due to him not getting out soon enough. He'll only get 1 lap in here, Will Don Good.
Hopefully it's a good one. Joe, there's just not a lot of passing opportunities here. The tight surface, or not the tight surface, the narrow surface doesn't promote any really, really great passing opportunities. Maybe turns 3 and turn 7, you can get a run into 3 and find an overtaking opportunity there. And of course, all the way down at the end of Strand Drive, there at turn 7, that right-hander, tight right-hander, almost a 90, really. Another good opportunity, but they are few and far between because there's a lot of danger zones around here, Joe.
Well, Don's lap, unfortunately, did not count. He must have had an off in the grass somewhere, so he is going to start from the back. Trangrade's coming across to get his second and final timed lap in. And does he improve? No, he does not. About half a second slower. Doesn't matter. He's still got the pole, and I don't think there's anybody out there with the ability to take a second lap. In fact, no. So the grid is set. Let's go through our starting order. Ove Trangrade, as we mentioned, took the pole away from David Gaspers. He tangled with him last time. Let's see what happens today. It's another track that's difficult to pass at. Gaspers completes the front row. Dimitri Houdaloudy starts in third, with Gary Teal rounding out row 2 and 4th. Ben Zocco puts his car well up the order. This is a good one for Ben, starting from 5th. He's flanked by Phil Lake, starting in 6th. Matt Wright will start in 7th. He's followed by the Canadian of Richard Morin in 8th. Jan Hoffman starts in 9th. And Hideki Koivisto, our AM Championship leader, starts in 10th.
All right, Joe. Andrew Ng going to start 11th. We've got Johnny Belle there in 12th. Mike Kopak going to start 13th. Don, tell me something good. Got a 14th place there going. In row 8, the back of the field, it's going to be David Beatty and Robert Reynolds.
As the cars start to grid up, just a quick reminder that as well as our channel over here, iRacing has a new channel for their esports. If you want more iRacing action, head on over there and subscribe. There you see the banner down there. Definitely go give it a look, as you'll see all the major series, the pro series that they have on iRacing being broadcasted there now. Definitely go give them a glance, with lots of great racing to find. There we saw the grid lining up. Let's see if it's going to be clean out there. We've been kind of hyping up the attrition out here, the worry, but based on what we've been seeing from the drivers and the talk before the race in the forums, it is not unfounded, as it's basically been a survival race instead of a speed race. Here we see Dimitri taking his first win, his maiden win in the series, at least on the broadcast races last week at Sonoma. Just a few more moments as we wait for them to complete gridding up. Not a huge field out here today, but a decent showing. Lights are up. Engines start to rev here in round 4 of the Lotus 49 World Cup. Green flag is out, and it looks like a clean start for our top drivers as Trangrade pulls away. Starting to get single file here through 1 and 2. Sean, you were telling me it is incredibly difficult over there.
Yeah. Oh, no. Oh, that's, who was that? That was, oh, it's Richard Morin.
And David Beatty also suffered from that. A few cars had to weave their way through. Thankfully, not as big as it could have been. Top of the field was clean. Back of the field, not so much.
Yeah, and I'm afraid Hideki Koivisto might have gotten caught up in that too.
That is a shame for his championship hopes. They do get some drop weeks, though. Meanwhile, Ove Trangrade leading the way over Gaspers and Houdaloudy. They run as they started on the grid. Gaspers very much putting the pressure on the Norwegian. The difficult braking of 7. Will we see any incidents here? Any drivers slam it into the tires? Looks like everybody's safe through. Now they enter through the tricky fountain section. Out of the slow turn 11, the bumps here, incredible, especially in this car without any downforce. And then I always found these 2 corners, Sean, very, very difficult. You got to get right up to that wall. And I think we already got someone who got into it. Did Dimitri clatter his car into there?
Sure did, Joe. You shouldn't have been talking about it. You jinxed the poor guy. Yeah, he did. We're going to have to see how that's going to affect his pace going forward here.
Look at the replay, and you can see before we jump to that just how hard it is to pass. Gary, I think, has a whole car and couldn't get by. Oh, and we're going to watch the replay of the incident first. Let's see, I believe. And when we come back, we'll have to get a replay. There's a pass for the lead going on right now. Oh, the number 7.
It's the curb there, and that's Morin in the 7, Joe, and what a tumble.
We're going to watch on board Hideki. I have to say he's an innocent victim in this one, just taking his line. There's cars all around. Yep, as you can see, just wound up, turned around and all that. Now, the pass didn't take place, but Gaspers gave it a good go through 3 and 4. Couldn't pull it off.
Well, Joe, there's a reason. He's trying to pass Ove Trengrade, and Ove doesn't seem like he's in any mood to let anybody get by him right now. He went defensive a couple of times and just kind of thwarted the effort by Gaspers, but really loose. Oh, man.
This is a game of chicken with these walls. It's who dares go fast enough to flirt with them, Sean?
Sunset drive across the stripe there, and Ove's going to lead another lap, working on lap 3. Gaspers gets that run right into his gearbox.
He tried to get a good launch on him, and unfortunately it was too good of a launch. Had to lift as they run down to turn 3. You can see just nowhere near an attempt this time around. Now, incredibly, despite touching the wall, I think Dimitri's car is good enough to keep pace with these guys because he's not dropped off. He's still within a second of the top 2.
You know, I'm not seeing any real physical damage on the car, Joe. Might have just been a scuff. I'd be ill-advised to continue to do that, though. You know what I mean? You don't want to put you don't want to go back to the well there.
Sorry, the leader side by side. Gaspers with a great run and to the inside down into turn 9. Can he complete the pass? Ove's trying to hold him off. He barely keeps out of the wall. I think he might have glanced it, but first place goes to Gaspers.
Actually, Joe, I think he just barely missed it, but he's close. It was ever so close. But look what Lotus has done now. He's right behind him. He's become now part of this battle.
My goodness, this is incredible stuff. I can't believe how brave some of these drivers are. It's almost a game of football here because it is a game of inches out there. How close do you want to get? Wow, and on screen, Gaspers coming out of the final corner, braking for turn 1. Even he looked like he just about rubbed the Goodyears off of these tires. This time, looks like Ove not close enough. Apologies to the mid-pack. Nobody else really as close as our top 2. And right on board with Ove now.
Yeah, unfortunately, we've lost 4 right off the top, Joe, and only 12 cars on track right now.
We'll stay with this, but just an update. Teal running in 4th. You can just catch glances of mid-screen. Philippe Blake running a great run here in 5th place. He started in 6th, so he's up 1 position. Down into 7. Ove, big slide there. This is what we tend to see from Ove. I think this track might hurt his driving style here, Sean. He is a little wild sometimes, and
yeah, not exactly the type of track where you want to be a little wild and free.
I wonder if this is why Mick Claridge has decided to pass on this week. Ove holding tight behind the car of Gaspers, trying to put the pressure on, but every once in a while those slides losing him a little bit of time.
You know, the car at times, Joe, honestly feels like it's, you know what a 4-wheel furniture dolly is? It feels like each wheel has a 4-wheel furniture dolly under it at times, and you're just at the will of the dolly.
Driving on caster wheels, basically.
Yes, exactly, yeah.
A little bit farther back, we are getting a little bit close between Johnny Belle and Mike Kopak. This is for 9th place, just at the tail end of the top 10. You can see it got about half a second between where they did, as looks like Belle dropped back a little bit as they worked their way through 1 and 2.
Just in front of them is the impressive run that Don Good's got going on. Don is now up to 8th. He's picked up 6 spots, Joe. Now, he luckily avoided a lot of that carnage on the opening lap and was able to squeeze through, and boy, he's got himself an 8th, and honestly, car looks solid right now.
And you know, there were drivers talking pre-race about the advantages of starting at the very back of the pack. Oh, but there's disadvantages if you're slow. Our leaders have caught lap traffic. Robert Reynolds lets them through in the fountain section of all places, and somehow they successfully get by.
Yeah, they do. In fact, Ove doesn't seem to lose any time to Gaspers after passing Reynolds there. So good job by Reynolds of getting out of the way and letting these guys race.
Dimitri managed to sneak through. We ride on board with Gaspers. Now looking back, this is still our closest battle on track. Only half a second between them. It's been that way for pretty much the entire race. We saw this sort of thing at Sonoma. These two drivers very close, battling for position. It is round 2. Let's hope the gloves don't come out like they did last time.
This is Detroit. We don't use gloves in Detroit, Joe. It's bare knuckle, baby.
Well, I was going to say they have that big sculpture of the fist downtown. Oh, and Michael Kopak. That yellow car, was it turn?
It was turn 13, I think. Was it 12 or 13?
12, yeah.
Oh, 12 got him, yeah. He's just going to smack it. He's going to drive it right into the wall, unfortunately. Yeah, he just got in too hot, Joe.
The danger of that one, there's nothing to save you to the outside. You can see once it was damaged, it weaved its way to the inside and had another hit. He had to limp it into the pit lane, which was mercifully one corner away.
I think if it hadn't been just a corner away, I think he'd have probably had to tow. That car was not well.
There's no place to hide around here if you try to limp the car back. Back to the leaders once again. It's the Honda versus the green car of Gaspers. We got to get him to get a traditional scheme on that car or something here. He's come in and he's initiated himself. He's proven to be a real Lotus 49 driver. Now we just got to get him into one of the classic schemes. Number 1 on the car. He's the highest I rating out there. Ove Trangere, the number 3. Today, he's a bit of a match for David Gaspers.
Why have I never realized this before? But Gaspers is an 8100 I rating guy. That's insane.
He's racked it up in that SRF series.
I guess he has. I guess I just never really paid attention to what his I rating was. And for those of you watching who are not familiar with I rating, it's basically how drivers on the service are rated and kept track of and slotted to compete with others with like ratings. So, but this battle is incredible. Gaspers just hanging the car out on the edge right now. Ove behind him. You know, Ove's style of driving a little bit different. Oh! That drift style, and it almost spit him right there. Yikes.
My goodness. This has been one of, I'm searching for words, but the only thing that comes to mind, this is one of the most butt-clenching races to watch. Just, I cannot believe how close some of these drivers are daring to get and still able to keep it out of the walls. Ove and David are just flirting with disaster, and they still have more than half the race to go. I don't know how long they can keep this up, Sean, before one of them runs afoul of the wall.
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about. That's exactly what I'm waiting for to happen here. Luckily, it hasn't happened. These two are putting on a great race. Ove has been so close to the wall so many times here, just there again.
Well, of the 16 starters, there are only 11 campers left, and this horror show is probably going to take a few more the way things are going. Robert Reynolds, the last car running on track. I think he's going the best route here. He's kind of puttering around the usual way that he does. He's not got a lot of pace, but boy, he's going to get a decent finish. He could get a top 10 out here today if Reynolds keeps things going.
Reynolds kind of looking a little bit like the tortoise getting around here today, but you know what? Good on him. He's still in this race, and
absolutely,
you know, he's gained 5 positions. It's not going to hurt him. It's not going to be altogether that bad a day in the end if he could just keep it on track.
So actually a lap down of Andrew Ang, who just went by him, and he is sitting in the 10th spot. You take a glance through the field there, and we saw Ben Zocco, despite his good qualifying, He's moved down a spot. He might have get caught up a little bit trying to avoid that lap 1 accident of the Australian.
Joe, Ove just went purple. His fastest lap of the race there, behind our leader, David Gaspers.
He's done that a couple times. I saw his name flash up at the top of the screen once or twice, and while in second place, mind you. So these guys are hustling these cars. The pace is not sitting idle because they've left Dimitri in the dust. He's now about 4.5 seconds back.
They have, and Demetrius is not able to match the pace of these two.
Right on the nose of Ove, watching as he closes in on the gearbox of Gaspers. Through the fountain section one more time. I haven't driven in the 49 yet, amazingly. Usually I take the 49 at every new track out. But that turn 11, the bumps off of there, I feel like it's the worst one of the track in terms of trying to get on the gas at the same time as the car is just jostling around.
I think once you get the 49 out of here, I think you'll find that equally, turn 2, equally as frustrating, Joe. That exit off of 2 is about the same. Really bumpy and really just no grip there.
Gaspers responds, puts a purple lap in himself, and ups the gap to about 5 tenths, 6 tenths now as they streak their way towards turn 3.
I think Gaspers is starting to feel it, Joe. What do you think? Halfway point of the race. Man, just listening to the tires on Ove Trengrade's machine, Joe, that's going to be down to the bare threads, I think, when we get done. He is just abusing him right now.
Certainly is. Now, thankfully, these tires don't go out too much on you. Now, you can spin them too much and put a little too much heat. They lose a slight bit of grip, and you got to let them cool down. But, oh, wow! Did Ove touch or did he not? That, speaking of overheating them, I think we're seeing Ove do that now.
Joe, I think the replay says it all. Watch this. Just he missed it. He did not hit that wall. My God.
There's a piece of paper between himself and the wall.
You can't.
Back in fifth, Philippe Lake has Benzoko trying to recover from his bad start, and he's getting very close to the back of him. Phil Lake finding trouble as well, getting to the power. And the expression on the driver's face says it all, I think, Sean. Whoever on iRacing modeled the driver and decided to leave the eyes like that, kudos to you, sir.
No blinking. You're definitely... Oh, Phil Lake really sliding into the turn that time. There's an opportunity for Zoko.
Yeah, you know, I almost wonder if he decided to just let Zoko by there, because Phil Lake, I wonder if he touched the wall. He is struggling a whole lot. The car doesn't look damaged. Sometimes it's hard to tell with the Lotus 49.
Yeah.
No wings to really see bent.
Yeah, and the tube obviously sits inside the tires, so generally the only place you ever see any damage on that is in the nose cone of the Lotus 49. It's certainly easy to hurt the suspension, and certainly the toe on that front end.
Well, that brings Benzoko back to where he started with a top 5, but he's 11 seconds behind Gary Teal. It's going to be a hard ask unless Gary himself accrues some damage. Now, up front, things are getting, they're changing, I should say, because they're not necessarily getting interesting. Ray Trangarade dropping off now to 8 tenths behind Gaspers.
Yeah, well, I think, honestly, Joe, I think the way he's been abusing those tires, he's either one, had to take a break, or two, it's just not there. He's got no grip and no speed, obviously.
Or is Gaspers maybe getting the hang of things as well? I haven't seen as many wild moments for the German up there. So I wonder... You mentioned a little bit earlier that it seemed like he was getting into the rhythm. It's starting to look like it to me as well. Just kind of finding the track, figuring out where he can push, where he can't. edging away from the Norwegian.
Yeah, you know what I found last night? Once you get dialed in on your marks here, I mean, this is a manageable track to get around. It's when you mix in all the traffic and the varied levels of experience here, I think that causes the big problems. Looks like we got a battle going on for ninth, though, now. Johnny Belle, Andrew Ng, really, really close together on track here right now.
Yeah, Ng has closed it in on Johnny. They work their way through the final corner, down to one. Once again, closing well under braking is Andrew Ng. Let's see what kind of run he can get over the hump. Ooh, not good. He slid very wide, lifted out of the gas, and that gives a reprieve for Belle. Turn 3. Go ahead.
I was going to say it's a good American battle right there between Belle and Ng. Belle, the Pennsylvania driver, Ng, and emanating from the great Midwest.
This is another one of those tricky crests into 6. Both of them looking pretty good out of the corner. And Ng actually very good. Belle's going to give it up. He gives a lift down the backstretch. Andrew Ng gets promoted to P9. Safely through turn 7 and now into the fountain section. Now Ove Trangrade has responded. That 0.8 of a second gap is back down to 4.
Yeah, I'm going to accuse him of watching the broadcast, Joe.
I don't think Ove needs to push too hard out there. Oh, and speaking of which, Gaspers with a mistake through the fountain section. That closes it down further. Tightly behind in the tire tracks of the number 1 car. Ove Trangrade knows it's incredibly hard to pass, and he puts it in the wall.
That time he did.
How hard was the hit, though? Let's look at the replay. Wonder if we can see whether or not the suspension gets damaged. Looked like a hard thwack from my angle.
It wasn't gentle, Joe. It was enough. He's starting to back up a little bit already, Joe. I think he did hurt the car.
Oh yeah, I'd say so. By that line he took through turn 3. Oh, and did Belle get the wall?
I think
and Ng.
Joe. Oh no! Yeah, it was Ng first, and then Belle just runs right into him. Nowhere to go here.
Yeah, Ng did it in the very same. Wow, I thought that it would be a different corner.
Oh,
here's Ng once again in turn 12, just catching him out. And then for Belle, it appears it was that turn 4 or 5? So as we come back live, regardless of which corner it was the walls. And that's 9 and 10th gone. So Robert Reynolds not only going to get a top 10, he's going to get promoted to 9th here.
Yep. And the journey continues for Mr. Reynolds. Oof. Wow.
I think you're right, Sean, about Trangrade. That number 3 is now 1.1 behind Gaspers.
Yeah, that's the biggest margin all race right there.
6 laps to go. But this race definitely not over if you're deciding it might be time to tune out. As you've seen, it is incredibly difficult to keep the car whole around here. Gaspers by no means has this thing wrapped up. With this many laps left, 14 corners on the track, that's a lot of opportunities to throw the race away.
A lot of safety rating, too, if you can avoid hitting anything on the way to the finish.
Boy, this is one of those all-or-nothing tracks, almost Bathurst-like, Sean, that either you gain a lot of safety rating or you don't.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. You're the second person I've heard make the same comparison to Bathurst. It really does share that that type of consequence that you get with Bathurst. This is, I'll tell you what, this is a gem for iRacing to finally get this one on the surface, on the service. It gives every driver in iRacing an opportunity to challenge themselves. Number one challenge here, keeping the car out of the wall. Number two challenge, trying to find speed and grip.
Well, I seem to have spoke too soon. Andrew Ang has come back out, and he's kept 9th place. Robert Reynolds will only get to the top 10. He is on the same lap, I believe. Yes, he is, as Andrew Ang, but a minute behind. So as long as Ang isn't too damaged, he should be able to hold Reynolds back.
Well, it's good to see him get back out here. Obviously, the damage not so bad. They wasn't able to still get it around track. So we'll keep an eye on his progress.
Speaking of progress, we got some time. So, did Trangrade hit the wall? That car looked... Okay, it looked like...
Just ill-handling right now.
Yeah, I thought that maybe he hit it again because, man, that thing was weaving like crazy. But let's run through the field and actually through the entire field because that's about how many are left. Up at the top, we've got our leader Gaspers. You just saw him lapping Reynolds once more. The gap increasing to about 1.5 over Ove Trangrade, who at this point I think is in damage limitation mode, just trying to get it to the end. Sitting in second. Dimitri, we really haven't looked at him ever since the start, but he's holding his own. He did swipe the wall once, but he's got about 7.5 seconds up to Trangrade there. Still going to get a podium. Gary Teal, another guy that's been a little bit anonymous this race, but running fourth and having a very fine race indeed. Ben Zocco managed to get himself back up into fifth after slipping down to sixth early on. He sits about 16 seconds back from Teal. Really, he's got to hope for a big incident from someone ahead to gain another spot. What's the back half of the top 10 look like, Sean?
Well, right now it's Phil in and around the lake, sitting in sixth, right where he started. Car's pretty clean, and I'd say he's probably feeling pretty good about where he's at right now. Just the fact that the car is on the track and so many others have had trouble, and as I say that, really, really hard on the tires of this car. He's coming around. Oh, good job there by Phil of keeping it under him. And we'll go back to seventh. It's Matt Wright on track. And again, Matt's got to probably feel pretty good about where he's at, too. Still be in this race and still have a straight car to wheel around. And then it's Don, Tell Me Something Good, who has been in eighth for quite a while now, actually. After picking up those spots early and avoiding that carnage, he's done a great job to keep himself in the top 10 and out of danger. Then we go to ninth, and that's Andrew Eng. And, of course, we charted his trouble back from the pit stop on track, sitting in ninth. And then Robert Reynolds, who just doesn't have the pace, but you know what? He's got the car to finish the race. He's been out of trouble for most of the day, Joe.
You know, Sean, I know Dawson is the one that's earned the nickname Never Say Die, but I feel like Ove might have taken that one over because for a while he was actually within 9/10. He gained ground on David Gaspers, and I'm watching him wheel this car. Oh my God, is he getting it sideways in some corners and just not giving up? He's trying to push his pace. I was wrong about that damage limitation mode. He's decided to just try and wheel it as hard as he can.
Well, I think he knows if he keeps digging here and keeping the car on the limit, I mean, he could pressure Gaspers into making a mistake here over these last couple laps. Gaspers cannot feel safe about this lead right now. He can see his relative. He knows. He can look at his mirror, and he can see Ove back there dancing around, looking for an opportunity. Good job by Don Good at getting out of the way of the leaders there as they come through.
Yeah, didn't interrupt these guys at all. Gap stays at about 1 second. We're going to get to the penultimate lap here when they come across the line. And Gaspers hold on, keep the car safe for that long. He can't back off too much. And these final 2 laps as they come through 1 and 2. Did Trangrade set the fastest lap with a damaged car?
He did.
Oh my God.
28.3. continues to impress.
This is one of the more ridiculous races I've seen in the Lotus 49, and we've seen some wild ones. As they work their way out of 4, up to 5, narrowing exit, and then up to the backstretch. Trangrade continuing to let that tail wobble back and forth.
You know, there was a Brazilian chap a few decades ago that made a car look like that when he was on track. I don't know. I think his name was Senna. Look at that trait. I saw that. I did, yes.
Just chopped half a second off in one braking zone.
Yeah.
Oh, and Gaspers missed a gear on the backstretch is what we're hearing. So that's what caused that.
Oh.
Interesting.
Well, that explains a couple things.
Well, this just goes to prove the point we've been making. His lead is not safe, and Trangrade knows that he is pushing hard. He's trying everything he can. Damaged car or no, he wants to take this win.
He smells blood in the water, Joe. Here he comes.
I think he's driving a little too hard. That's an awkward line through 1 and 2, and you can see the time that it has lost him now. The Norwegian desperately clawing to try and take a win. Gaspers seeing if he could coast this car home. If he makes another mistake like we saw last lap, that could hand it over to Trangrade. You can see the red mist is down, and he is just ready to do anything to get a win.
Gaspers wins this race, Joe. He will have absolutely earned it.
I agree. And, though he has won the first 2, missed out on the 3rd, he's proving what he's made of. Through the fountain section for the final time. The white flag has flown, and at this point, he's waiting for the checkers. Not much between himself and Trangrade. He knows it's incredibly hard to pass. At this point, maybe just easing up a bit, trying to preserve the car. 1 corner to go. David Gaspers, as clattering into the wall one more time goes Trangrade. Gaspers takes the win.
Wow. What a job by Ove. Demetrius Houdlouis going to come home in 3rd. That's a good podium finish for him. He just stayed out of trouble.
Boy, the real world, they talk about the IndyCar drivers being exhausted and beaten up after this race. I think it's the same thing with these cars.
I'm feeling a bit exhausted and beaten up myself after just watching it.
Teal with a 4th. Zoko, how about that? Nice top 5 for the Australian. Boy, they are spread out after that one.
Yeah, they really are. It wasn't really hard to find anybody on track when I was looking at my track graphic that I've got up.
Philippe Lake going to get a nice 6. How about Don Good? If we could... Oh, did Don Good already finish? Yes, he did. He was a lap down. So he gets an 8th place. Last one to come across the line is Matt Wright, and that's going to complete all the cars. So with that, we're going to take a break here on the Global Sim Racing channel. We'll come back with the official results as well as driver interviews. Don't go away, because on screen, you're going to see all the upcoming races here on the GSRC. Welcome back to Detroit. As the drivers lick their wounds, we get ready to have our post-race interviews. And before that, let's read you off the finishing order. David Gaspers managed to take the win despite starting in second. Ove Trangerade, really one of the stories of the race, though, finished, but after hitting the wall twice, the second one on the very last lap, trying his best to try and run down Gaspers with a damaged car. Still, a second place is impressive the way that he ran today. Dimitri takes third place. I think not as concerned about trying to keep up with the leaders, just wanted to take the car home. Gary Teal finishes in fourth place with Ben Zocco rounding out our top five. Phil Lake with a sixth place. Didn't get to see a whole lot of him. He was a bit wild out there as well, trying to keep the car together. Matt Wright, last car on the lead lap, takes a seventh place finish. And Don Good, a nice job. He deserves some big kudos to get an eighth place. Sean, what's the rest of the field look like?
Well, it's going to be Andrew Eng finishing this race in ninth. Robert Reynolds will get a finish a few laps down there in 10th, but he did finish this race. Unfortunately, these next six drivers did not. They spend the end of it in the pit lane. Johnny Belle, 11th. Mike Kopak, 12th. David Beatty, 13th. Jan Hoffman there in 14th. Hideki Koivitso, Richard Morin were the big casualties from that opening lap incident, 15th and 16th respectively. But a fun race indeed, and probably time to talk to the winner, isn't it, Joe?
It definitely is. Let's bring in David. And David, you took home the win, but during that race, did you have any idea of the damage that Ove was dealing with as he kept up with you?
No, I don't think so. But I don't think it was that much of a damage, considering how fast he was.
Clearly, because he set fastest lap a couple times, even after hitting the wall. Now, he was certainly pushing hard to try and get that lead back. Were you pushing as well, or were you just trying to conserve and just keep the car out of reach from him?
I was trying to drive in a way where it wouldn't risk anything, so I could have gone a little faster, but I'm not sure I would have survived then.
It seemed like a lot of drivers were trying to drive in that fashion. Now, this has proven incredibly difficult for, I think, just about everyone. Would you like to see Detroit back on next season's schedule for the Lotus 49, or do you think this should be a one-off?
Definitely. This is my favorite track this season so far.
Oh, wow. Glutton for punishment. David, that was an absolutely impressive run. Is there anyone you'd like to thank after that win?
Yeah, thanks to Ove. This was the first time I had a close race for the whole distance, I think.
Yeah, and it gave us a great show to watch out there. Nice run, and hope to see you next week.
Yeah.
That was David Gaspers, a man of few but very precise words out there. Up next, Sean has caught up to third place. Dimitri didn't get a win this week, but I bet the third place feels like a win.
Yeah, Dimitri, tell us, how tough was that getting around Detroit today?
Guys, I think it's the toughest track that I have run, and this combo is absolutely, how can I say it? Soul draining. Is it all right that in English?
I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think I hit the wall twice in the first couple of laps, and another one somewhere in the middle of the again in the first lap. So yeah, I was trying to get in rhythm even slower than I could possibly go. So I was I think I could go much faster if I had a little bit more practice. Maybe yes, but I'm very pleased with my result in the end.
Did the couple times you hit the wall, did it affect the handling of the car much?
It didn't affect the handling much, but I'm sure that it affected that, especially during hard braking. So I had to brake earlier and not that hard. So that had an impact on my lap times, I guess.
Well, you did the main thing. You kept the car out of real trouble, and you do finish on the podium. That's going to certainly help in the points and get you looking forward to next week. What if there was a least favorite part of this track? What is it?
The last sector. I don't know. In the corner before the last one, getting to the main straight, there was so much understeer. I was losing so much time and hit the wall twice there. I don't know why did that happen. I don't know what's wrong with that corner, but I don't like it much.
Yeah.
From now on.
You weren't the only one. We may have to rename that Calamity Corner because, it wasn't unique to you. Hey, listen, congratulations again on the podium finish. Anybody you'd like to thank, real quick?
One minute, guys. Sorry. Yeah. First of all, I would like to thank you very much for the broadcast. I always watch them, and the production and you guys commentating do a great work. Thank you very much. And of course, all the guys that show up. It's Saturday, and have that great league, sort of league type of thing going on. Thank you very much.
All right, and thank you, Dimitri. We'll see you next week. And Joe, look who showed up to talk to you. He was lonely. Phil, in and around the lake, has joined us in the booth.
Yeah, Phil, you drove in and around the lake there on the island this time. And how about this? 6th place finish in a 16-car field. That's pretty handy out there.
Yeah. Hi, guys. Yeah, I was pretty happy with that. Had a little bit of an issue halfway through the race, but I probably only could have got top 5, I think, was my absolute perfect result today.
Now, was the issue related to you letting Ben Zocco by? We saw at one point during the race, it seemed like you didn't put up much of a fight there.
Yeah, about half a lap before I let him by, I had a pretty heavy contact coming out of turn 4, and pretty much bent the right-hand side of the car. So it was difficult to drive after that. And when Ben was all over me, I was kind of thinking, I don't want to lose control of the car and take him with me. So I'd let him go and then kind of hoped I'd be able to keep up with him, but I couldn't.
Regardless, didn't lose that 6th place after you did let him go. Matt Wright stayed behind. Now, next week, we are heading over to, let's see real quick. I need to check my Road America. So a lot more wide open, but also a lot faster. Do you think that one will suit you a little bit more?
Well, Road America isn't one of my favorite tracks, so I might not even be here next week, but we'll see. I'll run a few laps and see how it feels, but definitely a totally different circuit to Belle Isle.
Very, very different. Well, if you do try it in the 49, I can tell you, you'll be going pretty fast at the end of those straightaways in this slipstreamy car. So again, congratulations on a 6th place, and thanks for coming to talk to us.
Yeah, thanks, guys. See you.
With that, that concludes our interview. So we're going to wrap it up today. A big thank you to the Lotus 49 community, as well as Ben Zocco, for helping organize everyone and bring the broadcast back here on the GSRC. As we see the accident happening in the background one more time there. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast listed here on your screen. Additional thanks go out to Eric Ekholm and June Lalonde, who provide our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of their great work. Thanks to the team today, Sean, Amjad, and Dougie. Sean, of course, stepping in for Johan as he's on a nice vacation out on another continent.
He's on holiday.
Holiday, yes. As they say over there. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. You can also check us out on social media. We're on Twitter at GSR Channel, and Facebook at /GlobalSimRacingChannel. We're also on Instagram at GSRC_Graham. Don't forget to head on over to our YouTube page and hit that big red subscribe button as well, so that you don't miss a moment here on the GSRC. As we mentioned, the next race, we're heading over to Wisconsin for Road America. That'll be July 14th at 9:30 a.m. Eastern. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. However, until next time, race clean, race hard, and I'll see you on the track.